In this lesson, we're going to discuss how to use the execute SQL task. It is used to perform SQL queries. It can use parameters. You can save the query results in variables. You can return a single row or an entire table. Here in Visual Studio, I'll drag out an execute SQL task from my toolbox. I'll right-click and go to Edit to open the editor. Once inside the editor, you'll see the properties of the execute SQL task, including general, the options, the result set, and the SQL statement. Under general, you see name and description. Under options, we see the timeout and code page. The timeout is the amount of seconds it would take before the query would time out. Code page is your default language page, in this case 1252, which is Western European. If you're using something else like Korean characters, you would change that here. Under result set, we have three options. We can select single row, full result set, XML, or none, of course. A single row would be if you're returning a single row of data or just one single number, for example, a count star from a table. A full result set would be a full table, and so would the XML. Then we have the connection types you can select from. You can select Excel, OLEDB, ODBC, ADO, ADO.NET, and SQL Mobile. Once you select your connection type, you'll be able to click on the connection drop-down menu and select your connections. Notice I already have an OLEDB connection on this package named localhost AdventureWorks 2008. If not, my only choice would have been new connection. Next is the SQL source type. You can select direct input. Direct input is where you type the SQL query directly into the SQL task here. A file connection, which is where you can select a .SQL file. And a variable, where you can select a package variable. And the package variable can be a string variable that holds the select statement. Below is SQL statement. It's SQL statement because I have direct input selected. If I select variable or file input, this would change. I select file connection, and now we see file connection. And if I select variable, it says source variable. Below is the choice of is query stored procedure. We set this to true if it is a stored procedure. And then bypass prepare. This is defaulted to true, and you can change this to false by clicking on the drop-down menu and selecting false. The next node on the left is the parameter mapping. Here we'll map parameters to our query. So just as an example, I'm going to select my AdventureWorks database, and my source I'm going to use direct input, and I can type in a statement like select count star from, it needs to be star, production dot product, and this will count all the rows in the production.product table. And I can use a where clause, where product dot name is equal to, and use a question mark. This question mark is my parameter. I click OK, go to my parameter mapping, click add at the bottom, click on the drop down under variable name. I can select a variable on the package or a system variable. If I don't have one, I'll click the new variable button and create a new variable. And I'll call this strprod name for string product name. And then I can change the value to a product on the table. Like for example, bike. Not sure if that's the actual product on the table, but this is just an example. I click on the drop down menu for a data type, and I'll change this to varchar. And then you'll see the parameter name. The parameter name needs to be 0. I go back to my SQL statement. The parameter name is 0 because it's the first parameter in my list. If I had multiple parameters, for example, or product.name equals and another question mark like so, the first question mark is 0, the second question mark is 1. And this is when you're using an OLADB connection. Other connections, the parameters have different numbering. For example, the ODBC, the numbering starts at 1 and not 0. Once we have our SQL statement pulling back our data for us, we want to pass that data into a result set. In this case here, I'm only selecting a number, so I'm going to select single row, go to my result set, click on Add. The result set is going to be 0 also, because I did not give an alias to my result. And then I can click on the drop-down menu, create a new variable, and this I can call my int count. Or I must make it product count so it's a little more descriptive. So int product count, we'll make the value type a integer, 32. The default's at 0, and click OK. And now whatever the count is from my database will be placed into a single row in the result set variable, the int product count. Then I can use that later on in the package to make decisions. You can also click on the build query below. So if I delete this query from my direct SQL, click on build query. I can use this to build a query. So I can right click and go to add table. And I can select the product table. Click add. Hit close. And now I can do the same thing. Count star from production.product. And I can say where name equals and the question mark. Click OK. And now we can look at the SQL statement, and we can see it's added an alias of expression1 on our count. It's also put brackets around the star. So the first thing we need to do is remove the brackets around the star because it's not a literal name. I want to actually count star, so I want to count everything. And expression1 is just a default name. I'm going to change that to counter. So now I have an alias of counter. Click OK. Now I go to my result set, and instead of a 0 now, I'll type in counter. Click OK. Run the query. And it turns green, indicating success. So we're able to pull back that information and pass it into the variable. In the try it section, we're going to create a SQL query. We're going to use parameters in that SQL query, and we're going to save the query results in a variable. Here in Visual Studio, I've already got a package created called Lesson10. I'm going to go ahead and drag out an execute SQL task, right click and go to edit. And I'm going to click on the connection in the drop down menu here, select new connection. I'm going to select the AdventureWorks 2008 connection I already have. If you don't have this connection, you click new, and you can create that connection here in the connection manager. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to set my result set to single row. I'm going to leave my SQL source type as direct input, and I'm going to click on the SQL statement, and I'm going to enter in the query select count star as counter from products where product ID equals and question mark, which is for my parameter. In the parameter mapping, I'm going to click add, and I'm going to create a new variable. And I'm going to click on the drop down menu next to variable name, and I'm going to call this int product ID. I'm going to make it an integer, 32, and we're going to set the value to 316 and click OK. I can leave my data type at long, but my parameter name is going to be changed to a 0 because it's the first parameter in my query. I'm going to click on the result set, click add. I'm going to leave the name at 0. Click on the drop down menu and select new variable for my variable name, and I'm going to call this int product count. Make this an integer variable, and I'll set the default to 0 and click OK. And I'm going to drag out a script task also and connect the execute SQL task to it with an on success precedence constraint. I'm going to double click on the script task. In the read-only variables, I'm going to select the int product count variable. Go into my edit script. And I'm going to enter in message box dts dot variables, and we'll type in int product count dot value. And this will give us a pop-up box showing us the value of the int product count variable. We'll save this and close it. Click OK. And we'll run this package one time. And you see we get a pop-up box with the number 1, indicating the product count came back with a count of 1, so the product does exist in the table. It's there one time. Now we can change the value after we stop the debugging. We can right click and go to variables, change the value from 316 to some other number like 0, and rerun the package one more time to see if we get a different number. And now we see a value of 0 because that product ID doesn't exist in the table. In this lesson, we discussed how to use the execute SQL task. We showed you how to use it to perform queries, use parameters, save the results in a variable, and showed you how you can return a single row or a table.